Welcome to our deep dive into AI. Looks like you really want to get past all the hype and really understand what AI actually means, for us. And you've given us some really interesting stuff to dig into. We've got a transcript from a Discovery Brazil YouTube video all about AI, and this document that's called Prompt para Video Grande, which seems like it's instructions for another AI video. We've been going through all this stuff, and it's clear you're fascinated by all the potential of AI, but maybe also a little wary of what it can all mean.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. And for good reason. I think what's interesting is both these sources are pointing out that AI is already woven into our lives, often in ways we don't even realize.
Yeah, that's true. I think we tend to think of AI as something in the future, but both these sources are really emphasizing that it's not just robots or some kind of sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. The Discovery Brazil transcript really hits on this. They define AI as the ability to achieve some kind of complex goal. It doesn't matter if it's a biological brain or a computer program. Take Spotify, for example. They create these personalized playlists based on what you're listening to. That's AI in action, but it's not like some robot DJ picking your tunes.
It's a good point. It's AI working behind the scenes, making decisions and predictions based on tons and tons of data. But then the transcript goes on to talk about one of the biggest challenges in AI, and that's language.
Right. And they use this really funny example. They have this Portuguese phrase, Max mole achará na ópera. So we understand that to mean Max Mole was found at the opera. But a computer might misunderstand the word order or the context, and that can lead to some confusion.
It's funny how we just take language for granted. We understand nuance and sarcasm in context without even thinking. But to try and program that into a machine is incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. The transcript talks about how Watson, the AI, the one on Jeopardy, even that had to be trained on millions of documents. To really grasp how complex human language is, it shows you just how many different interpretations are possible and how hard it is to get a machine to really understand language, not just process words.
Makes you realize how intricate our own brains are. Speaking of AI doing surprising things, the transcript also goes into this project called Project Debater. I have to admit, this one really caught my eye.
Yeah, it's been remarkable. They're actually developing an AI that can debate with humans. Not just simple debates either, really complex discussions about ethics and morals.
Yeah, I was blown away by that. Imagine a computer arguing about universal basic income or the ethics of genetic engineering. Seems like something out of a movie.
And that's where it gets really interesting. It's not just some tech demo. The transcript mentions that they did a test, and the AI actually managed to change the audience's opinion on a specific topic by 10%. Which is pretty significant.
That's both impressive and a little unsettling, It raises some questions. What if AI can be used to influence our opinions? If it can sway public opinion? What does that mean for debate and decision-making in the future?
That's a really good question, one worth thinking about. But while Project Debater shows what AI can do intellectually, the next topic we're going to dive into kind of brings us back down to earth. Let's talk about self-driving cars.
Self-driving cars. It's something that always gets so much hype, but the transcript gives a much more grounded perspective. It seems we won't all be driven around by robots anytime soon.
Yeah, that's right. The transcript really emphasizes just how complicated driving is. You've got weather conditions that are unpredictable, pedestrians who don't always behave predictably, and social cues that we understand naturally as humans, but are super hard to program into a machine, like being able to tell the difference between kids playing near the street versus just random objects.
It's a reality check for sure. We see self-driving cars doing well in demos, but the real world is messy and unpredictable. It highlights the limitations of AI even as it keeps advancing.
It does, and it raises questions about how we balance these technological advancements with real-world applications. While self-driving cars are still being worked on, there's another area where AI is making huge progress, and that's machine learning.
And that brings us to our second source, Prompt para Video Grande, which seems to be focused on machine learning.
That's right. And the Discovery Brazil transcript mentions this too. They describe machine learning as the key to a lot of AI's recent progress.
They even compare it to a child learning, through trial and error, but on a massive scale.
Yeah, it's a simplified analogy. But it helps illustrate the point. Think about AlphaGo Zero, the AI that learned to play Go. By playing millions of games against itself, it ended up developing strategies that even the best human players couldn't figure out. Strategies that humans had never even thought of.
It's crazy to think about the potential of a system that can learn and improve that quickly. It's almost like watching evolution and fast forward.
It is. And it has implications for so many fields, from medicine to finance to, playing Go. But with all this talk about what AI can do, it's only natural to wonder about its impact on jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, will robots take all our jobs? That's a question that comes up a lot.
It's a valid concern, and the transcript acknowledges that fear. But they offer a more nuanced perspective. They remind us that throughout history, new technologies have always led to some jobs disappearing, but also new ones being created. Think about jobs that exist today that didn't even exist like 20 years ago. Social media managers, app developers, drone pilots, things like that.
So it's not necessarily about like mass unemployment, but more about a shifting job landscape. We need to adapt and learn new skills.
Exactly. And the transcript goes on to highlight how AI can actually help humans, not just replace them. They give the example of Simon Wheatcroft, a blind marathon runner who used an AI-powered bracelet to navigate the New York City Marathon. It's a really inspiring story. It shows how AI can help people overcome challenges and achieve amazing things. But while AI can be used for good, the transcript also brings up some important questions about the potential downsides, especially when it comes to privacy.
Right. The privacy issue is a big one. The transcript talks about how AI is being used in facial recognition technology and data collection, and it paints kind of a scary picture. Like, they mentioned that China wants to be able to identify any citizen by their face in just seconds.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild stat. And it raises concerns about how AI could be used for surveillance and even social control. The transcript goes on to ask, are we already giving up our privacy for convenience? Like with our smartphones and all the data they collect.
It's a trade-off we make all the time, maybe without even realizing it. We want personalized experiences and quick transactions and constant connection. But what are we giving up for that? It feels like the line between convenience and intrusion is getting blurrier and blurrier.
It is. And as AI gets more advanced and more integrated into our lives, these questions about privacy and data security are only going to become more important. We need to have some serious discussions about where we draw the line and how we make sure AI is used ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. It's clear that AI is powerful. It can be used for good or bad. It all comes down to the choices we make.
Exactly. The transcript really hammers on the point that the impact of AI depends on the choices we make as a society. It's not about stopping AI. It's about steering it in the right direction, making sure it aligns with our values and benefits everyone.
It's like a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to shape the future of AI. But where do we go from here? What are some specific things we can do to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly?
Well, the transcript suggests a few key areas to focus on. One is transparency. We need to know how AI systems work, how they're trained, what their limitations are. We can't just blindly trust something we don't understand.
Yeah, transparency makes sense. It allows for accountability and helps build trust. What else?
Another crucial step is regulation. Governments and international organizations need to set clear guidelines and standards for developing and using AI and address things like bias and accountability and transparency.
So we need ethical codes of conduct for the people developing AI and regulations to make sure it's all being done responsibly.
Exactly. And along with regulation, education is key. We need to teach people about AI so they can understand the potential benefits and risks and make informed decisions about how it fits into their lives.
I agree. Right now, most people learn about AI from movies and TV shows, which often show these like really sensationalized or dystopian futures. We need a more grounded and realistic understanding of AI to navigate this rapidly changing world.
Totally. We need to move past the hype and the fear and start having real conversations about the future we want to create with AI.
It seems like we have a lot of work to do. Transparency, regulation, education, it's a lot. But is it enough? Technology is always evolving, and AI seems to be advancing faster than ever. Can we really keep up?
Yeah, it's a valid concern. We're definitely in uncharted territory, but I believe we have the capacity to shape AI's development and make sure it benefits humanity, not harms it.
That's good to hear. Sometimes it feels like we're just along for the ride, like AI is this unstoppable force.
I get that. It can be overwhelming. But it's important to remember that AI is a product of human ingenuity. We created it, and we have the power to guide its development.
So it's not about stopping AI, it's about steering it in the right direction.
Exactly. And that takes collaboration. We need everyone working together, ethicists, social scientists, policymakers, technologists, and the public, to make sure AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone.
That's a tall order. Sounds like a massive undertaking. But it's clearly essential for the future of AI.
It is. And it highlights how important it is to have these conversations now, before it's too late.
Hmm.
We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits and risks of AI, some of the ethical considerations, the need for transparency, regulation, and education. What else should we be thinking about?
One thing that the transcript doesn't really touch on is the potential impact of AI on our sense of self. As AI becomes more sophisticated, it's going to challenge our understanding of what it means to be human.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Can you explain that a little more?
Sure. For centuries, we've defined ourselves as the most intelligent species on the planet. But what happens when we create machines that are smarter than us?
It kind of throws our whole worldview out the window if we're not the smartest ones anymore. What does that mean for us?
It raises some really deep questions about our identity and purpose. Like, what does it mean to be human? In a world where machines can do everything we can do, and maybe even better.
Those are some heavy questions, and honestly, I don't know the answers.
Me neither. But I think it's important to start asking these questions now, so we can prepare for the future that's coming.
So we need to be thinking about not just the practical implications of AI, but also the philosophical and existential ones.
Exactly. As AI keeps evolving, it's going to force us to re-examine our assumptions about intelligence, consciousness,
Oh.
and what it means to be human.
This is a lot to take in. It's heavy stuff.
It is. But it's important to have these conversations.
It feels like we've only scratched the surface here.
Yeah, we've covered a lot. But AI is so complex, it seems like every question we answer just leads to more questions.
Right. More questions than answers.
I guess that's how exploration works. Sometimes the most important thing isn't finding the answers. It's discovering the right questions to ask.
So let's embrace the questions then. What are some of the big unanswered questions about AI that we should be thinking about?
Well, one that I find really fascinating is the question of consciousness. Could AI ever actually become conscious, like in the same way humans are?
It's a question that comes up a lot in sci-fi, and it usually leads to some pretty creepy scenarios.
Yeah, for sure. It's a concept that really captures the imagination. But as AI gets more advanced, it's a question that philosophers and scientists are starting to take seriously.
Is there even a way to know if an AI is conscious? Like, is there some kind of test we could create?
That's the hard part. We don't even really agree on what consciousness is, let alone how to measure it in a machine. But some researchers think that if an AI could show self-awareness and emotions and the ability to experience the world like we do, then maybe we'd have to consider the possibility of AI consciousness.
Wow, that's getting into some deep territory, almost like trying to define the soul.
It's definitely complex,
Yeah.
and we're just starting to explore these ideas.
Okay, so consciousness is one big question. What are some other mysteries about AI?
Another one that's closely related to consciousness is free will. If an AI can learn and evolve and make decisions, does it have free will?
Yeah.
And if it does, what does that mean for how we interact with AI?
That's a good point. If an AI has real free will, can we still just treat it like a tool, or do we need to start thinking of it more like a partner, or even like an entity with its own rights?
These are all questions we're going to have to face as AI develops, questions that will challenge our laws and our ethics, and even how we see ourselves as humans.
It's mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities, but also a little bit exciting. It feels like we're at the beginning of something big, like the relationship between humans and machines is about to change forever.
It definitely feels like a time of rapid change and huge potential. The decisions we make today will shape the future of AI and how it impacts our lives.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the practical ways AI is being used to the ethical and philosophical questions it raises. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
I think the main takeaway is that AI isn't some far-off thing. It's here now. And it's already changing the world in big and small ways. It has the power to solve some of our toughest problems. But it also comes with risks, and we need to be aware of those.
It's a powerful technology. We need to use it carefully and responsibly.
Absolutely. We need to approach AI with a sense of wonder, but also with caution, always thinking about the consequences of our actions.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. Thanks for taking us on this journey.
It was my pleasure. Exploring new ideas is always more fun when you can share it with someone.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to keep learning about AI. It's a field full of promise and challenges, and ultimately, the future of AI is up to us.
Remember, the future isn't something that just happens. We create it through the choices we make.
Until next time, keep diving.